On the board we have the two notations used for the inverse sine function. The first, sine inverse of x, this is not sine to the -1 power, this is sine inverse of x. Another common notation for the inverse sine is arc sine of x. Right? And this function is defined as follows. Sine inverse or arc sine of x is going to be the angle from -pi/2 to pi/2 whose sine is x. Right? Recall in the last video we saw how we chopped the graph of the sine function into just the branch from -pi/2 to pi/2. So our inverse sine function is only going to spit out values between those two radian measures. Okay. So let's take a look. For instance, sine inverse of 1, right? Well, let's think about our unit circle. The sine of x is equal to 1 at the top, right? There's infinitely many rotations that land at this point, 0, 1. Pi/2, 5pi/2, 9pi/2, as well as a whole bunch of negative ones. But by definition, our inverse is only going to spit out the value from -pi/2 to pi/2. So the sine inverse of 1 is going to be pi/2. What about the sine inverse of -1 over radical 2? Right? Well, again, I'm only allowed to consider angles from -pi/2 to pi/2, so I'm not even going to consider the left side of this unit circle at all. Sine has a value of -1 over pi/2 down here. Right, at +1 over radical 2, -1 over radical 2. Right? And the rotation between -pi/2 and pi/2 that makes that happen is a rotation of -pi/4. So sine inverse of -1 over radical 2 is equal to -pi/4. Right? So when we consider sine inverse and arc sine, the left side of the circle is irrelevant, right? We're only allowed to think of rotations from -pi/2 up to pi/2.